Well, hello everybody, it's Tim Green with Rattle Magazine, and welcome to the Rattlecast. We're the biggest freewheeling live stream poetry podcast on the planet, in your ears and on your laptops. Our guest for episode number 340 is Alan Shapiro. He'll be here with us in a few minutes, but before we get, I should say that Rattle is a publication of the Rattle Foundation, a 501c3 nonprofit working to promote the practice of poetry. We've been in continuous publication since 1995 and are unaffiliated with any other organization. We just do all this because we love poetry. I know you do too, so please do click on that like button and share. Make sure you're subscribed. Ring the bell for notification. Whatever you can do to help spread poetry around the internet would be much appreciated. And now, thanks everybody for coming in despite the delays. And we've had two now. First of all, our internet line was cut mysteriously on Monday afternoon, about 2 hours before the show. And it was fixed about 1 hour after the show. So we couldn't actually do it. We postponed it to Thursday. And then I opened up my program here, all the software, and my camera wasn't working. And so I had to reinstall it for some reason. And so, it's been one of those weeks. But we're so glad to have you here. So glad to have some wonderful poets lined up for you. And we're going to start out like we always do with our Poets Respond poet. And it's a familiar face, one of the poets we've had as a main guest. He's been in Poets Respond many times. And he's back with a wonderful poem. Here he is, Dantie Stefano. Hey, Dantie, how you doing?
Thanks for having me, Tim. Thanks for taking my poem.
Yeah, it's definitely my pleasure. It was a great poem. One of those ones, you have so many poems that are just so full of heart and have so much going for them. And this was one of those, and there's always a shortage of poems that make you feel good and appreciate life, And this was one of those. Why don't you tell us how it came to be?
Well, I write a poem a week about the news, and most of the time I submit to Poets Respond most weeks. And this week was searching around and, really kind of disheartened by just all of the horrible things that are going on, and not only the political things, but also the murders of families that were all in the news last week. There were like three or four, and there were just it's just overwhelming sometimes. So that's the case, so oftentimes I go to science articles. So I read an article about octopi during the Cretaceous period, and that reminded me of my son, my 4-year-old son Dantie, who's always playing this game called the Animal Game. And one of his favorite things in the Animal Game is to get you to guess something, and many times he guesses. He wants you to guess Kraken because he likes reading mythological books about krakens and things like that. So that's pretty much where it came from, and um, that's about it. Shakespeare's birthday is traditionally celebrated last week, and it's also this day died, and the day Cervantes died was last week too. So that all comes into the poem. So
Yeah, well, why don't you go ahead and read it, The Kraken. Yeah.
sure. The Kraken. Almost half a millennium ago, yesterday, Shakespeare and Cervantes died within a day of each other. And according to tradition, Shakespeare died on the same day he was born, which always reminds me of that W.S. Merwin poem about the anniversary of the day you die, far off in the future, or tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow, that day when the wren song ends in your heart and you beam the silence a lightless star. And on that day, I hope I remember playing the Animal Game with my 4-year-old son, like we did last night on the bard's death day. My son Dantie says, I'm thinking of an animal, but he pronounces it aminal. And I say, zebra? And he says, no, ask a question. And I ask, what color is it? And he says, orange or red? And I ask, does it live in the ocean? And he says, yes. And I ask, what does it eat? And he says, fish and goblin sharks and cookie cutter sharks and whales and super big hammerheads and megalodons and humans. And I ask, is it real or is it a mythical creature? And he says, a mythical creature. And he is smiling to batten the deep, and wondrous grottos open in him, and the secret cell of childhood winnows the slumbering green. And we are polypi in the Tennyson poem, rising through a choir of sea worms to the surface, where sailors and angels meet in the million arms of the present, the hour, the minute, the millisecond a poem pings. And I guess, Kraken. And he smiles and says, so sweetly, yes. And I live in the sound of that yes forever.
Yeah, that was The Kraken by Dantie Stefano. Dantie, thanks so much for joining the second time, too. Appreciate it. And let me ask, what have you been up to lately? Do you have any books coming up or anything going on? It's been a bit.
Well, I have a book that you actually blurbed coming out in November. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. That's Heartland Errata. It'll be out in November from Etruscan Press, which is kind of like my home press.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm working on a tribute anthology to my mentor, Maria Mazziotti Gillen, putting together that. So that'll take up a lot of time.
Well, that's wonderful too. Yeah, both. We'll definitely have to have you back as a main guest for a full show when the new book comes out.
That'll be great. That'll be great.
Yeah. Thanks, Dantie.
Thank you, Tim.
Yeah, that was Dantie Stefano with The Kraken. That was Sunday's Poets Respond poem. If you've got a poem about current events, anything that relates to what's going on in the news, like that story did in a few ways, all you got to do is go to rattle.com. Up at the top, you'll find under Content, Poets Respond. You'll find the submission portal there. And then you can submit your poems by midnight Friday every night for consideration as the Sunday Poets Respond poem. And, it's Thursday night. You got 24 hours to go. A lot of news happening this week, like every week, so get your poems in. Then we're going to take a quick break and go to our main guest, Alan Shapiro. So sit tight, and we'll be right back with a whole lot more poetry. All right, we're off the air. We can unmute you, Alan. Can you unmute? There you go. Yeah, Dante's really, really great. He's one of the best younger, I don't know how old he is, but he's one of the, I can think of as a younger poet. He's one of the best ones out there, I'd say. Okay, so I got this ready. Got your poems ready. We've got people watching. They were patient. That's good. Okay. Okay. What? Oh. I was hot mic. And we're back. Thanks so much for your patience and the wonderful hot mic. I muted the music instead of myself. I won't explain, but the software has switched the layouts and it's screwing me up. But that's probably why the camera was knocked out too. But anyway, we are here, and thanks so much for joining us. Our guest today, like I said, is Alan Shapiro. Alan first appeared in episode number 248. He's back with a new book, Diver. He's the author of 15 books of poetry, including Reel to Reel, a finalist for the Pulitzer Prize, Night of the Republic, a finalist for both the National Book Award and the Griffin Prize, 2 memoirs, a novel, 2 books of critical essays, and 2 translations. Shapiro taught at Stanford University, Northwestern University, Warren Wilson College, and from 1995 to 2021, he was the William R. Kenan Jr. Distinguished Professor of English and Creative Writing at the University of North Carolina. He joined us here from Connecticut, though. Hey, Alan, thanks so much for being here. Glad to have you back.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
Wonderful to be back.
yeah, definitely my pleasure. I do love your poetry. Love this new book, Diver. Do you want to dive right in, no pun intended, and share a poem?
Should I read the title poem? Start with that?
Yeah, that's a great one to start with. Yeah.
Yeah, which is basically the title poem called Diver. It's a painting on the inside lid of a sarcophagus, Greek sarcophagus around 500 BC, and it's called Diver. The naked and for those of you interested, I can hold a picture up. You can see this is a picture of it of the yeah. So that's the title poem of the book, Diver. Uh, the naked diver is caught mid-dive between cliff and water on the underside of the lid of a sarcophagus. Back arched and arms extended, give a slightly upward lift to his lithic free fall into water the falling never reaches. A weightless body in a sky of stone above a corpse that isn't there and hasn't been for centuries, reminding him of just how free of it he is. And when the corpse is gone, and the box too, and whatever joyous scenes were carved into its sides or painted, where is he? What is he? Beyond the mineral semblance of a stark longing, fresh as on the day a few slaves would have slid that massive ceiling into place.
Yeah, and that was Diver, the title poem from Alan Shapiro's new book, which you can see right here. And so how did you know? It's always interesting, the choice of picking a title poem. The reason why. So why call this book Diver?
Well, I'm 74 years old, so I am definitely on the sort of descending side of my existence on Earth. That's one reason. It's also I was reading I can't remember I think a book by Adam Nicholson, and I can't remember the title of it, that had that image as the cover of the book, and it's the fact that you have this incredibly beautiful image on the inside of a sarcophagus where nobody but a corpse would have seen it. To me, it's just sort of captured this sense of trying to make as much beauty and significance out of the diminishing possibilities of life as you get older as I possibly could. So it sort of captured that sense of beauty never being ever as valuable to me as it is now, when the life itself is diminishing as well. So the sense, the importance is increasing while the time is decreasing. So I guess that's why. And the title comes after, I didn't know what the title of this book was going to be until after I put it together, and wanted to find a title that would cast the largest net of implication over all the poems in the book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and last time we talked, which was about 2 years ago, you were saying that it was the best time of your life for writing.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
You just felt really, both inspired, and the fact that there was no pressure, like it was just for you and completely for you. Has that feeling continued? And yeah,
increased. In fact, I mean, I just feel very fortunate to be where I am and to be able to be healthy enough to still have all my marbles and still be able to read and write. And I don't, as I say, I don't. Of course, I want to publish the poems. But it wouldn't diminish the pleasure if I didn't get them published. It wouldn't diminish the pleasure in any way if I couldn't publish them. Just being able to write them itself is pleasurable enough. As it says, my old friend Annie Dillard says, how you spend your days is how you live your life. And spending my days writing poems like this is a pretty cool way to live your life. No matter who sees it or doesn't see it,
Yeah. So what is your typical day like these days? Like, do you write every day? Is there a set time or routine to it, or?
I don't write every day. I read every day. and I read every day with an eye to writing, but I don't write every day. My days, I get up and I walk my dogs across the street. We have a nature preserve across the street where I can walk. We have two dogs, a border collie and an Australian shepherd, and I walk them for about mile or so, and then come back and read for the rest of the morning, and then take them for another walk in the afternoon, and sometimes go to the gym and sometimes don't. That's pretty much, that's pretty much how my life is now. It's pretty cool. It's nice.
Yeah. And not
Not
a
no
bad life.
No,
Have
not a bad life at all. Yeah, just not enough of it. But but what's here is great.
yeah. So what triggers a poem day? Is there, is it reading usually, or something you
Yeah,
see, a thought?
it's pretty much reading, and something catches my eye, some idea, or an image, like seeing that diver. Yeah, I mean, every, as I say, it's that if every poem is a journey, every step is its own path. I mean, it's never the same ever. You can't you can't step into the same poem twice. I mean, so it's always different, but it's having some kind of interesting idea or thought. I was, I'm just wondering if there's another poem in here that comes out of most of the poems that are in this book. Almost all of them are are have been written since I moved up here to Connecticut, and uh, uh, 5 years ago. And I should say that the subtext of the book, um, there's a section of love poems in it, but the you in the poem is the same woman that reappears throughout, and it's the woman I'm now married to. But the story behind that is, during the very early days of COVID, I reconnected with an old college flame that I hadn't seen in 49 years, and now we're married. And so the sense that love and pleasure and can arrive at any time, even when you least expect it, even in the midst of other things that aren't so great, is also one of the themes of the book, or one of the concerns of the book, preoccupations of the book, is the sense that even in the midst of complicated things, it's like Dante's poem, lovely poem that we just heard. In the midst of a lot of terrible things happening, you still have that wonderful interaction with your son, and you feel as though you live forever in that yes. Which is such a beautiful last line. So that's that's really what the book is about, is the sense of possibility is never, so long as you're still living, there's always a sense of possibility of renewal of some kind or other.
Yeah. It's one of the sweetest dedications in the book. Katie and I were reading it in bed the other day, and just, it was so sweet to see. It was right here. It was for Rachel in the nick of time.
In the nick of time. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, when I was moving up here, I was telling Dante this before we went on air. My daughter said, we had just suddenly got back in touch, and so then I decided soon, about a month or so after we started to get in touch, that I would drive up here for Thanksgiving from North Carolina, where I was teaching and living. And my daughter said, "Geez, Dad, don't you think that you're jumping the gun? I mean, it's a bit early for something like that." And I said, "Well, had we been really mature adults, we would have waited half a century. But as it is, we jumped the gun at 49 years because we're just so impulsive." And so, uh, so anyway, so yeah, that's sort of the story behind the stories that are in the book. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I love, it's one of those books where the glimmers of that emerge. Not all the poems are about that, but it's interwoven. There's a real sweetness that's touching to that. Do you want to read another poem? What do you want to read next?
Ooh, okay. Well, I'll read. How about I'll read this a poem that speaks to this, called "Turning 70," a prose poem. And the you in the poem, of course, is Rachel, my wife. And it just sort of does a play on the sense of turning. Anyway, it's called Turning 70. Uh, what if this turning really did mean going round, not as in rounding a corner to whatever happens to be next, but in the faux affirmative Nietzschean sense of a turning back, living in this life, quote, again and innumerable times again, and there will be nothing new in it but every pain and every joy and every thought and sigh and everything unspeakably small or great, eternally returning, end quote. The great good luck of finding you so late, and then too, in consequence of that, the loss that one of us will face so soon. Would I want to? Should I want to? Because look, if I could live it all again, then wouldn't everybody have to? Not just the stars and co-stars in the story of my life, but the whole crew and the extras too, the panhandlers I didn't give a cent to, panhandling forever in the dead of winter in a shabby square. Those two kids fighting in an alley as I hurried by, pretending not to see. Drunk, I stepped over that one time on my way to work. Wouldn't everybody, for my sake, have to live it through again? Wasn't once enough? And never mind the wars and revolutions, that bomb, those camps, the outrageous payouts, payoffs, the short-term buck passing, the long-term depredation. Even if the fantasy were real, something more than just a godless way for the lucky ones to grasp at straws and call it choice or meaning, what difference would it make? All of us going round and round forever in a circle that's so immeasurably vast, its curvature, after all, would be entirely undetectable, which is to say, identical to the straight line we're all on now, moving at different paces in the same direction to the same one place through our separate and unequal lives.
Yeah, that was Turning 70 by Alan Shapiro from his new book, Diver, which you can find from Unbound Edition Press. Alan, can you walk me through the writing of that poem? I love you as a poet, so I'm always curious about your process. And it feels like that's one of those poems where you can see the process play out almost. It feels like, you had the thought about turning 70 and then turning back and then kind of played with it, and you had the quote, and then you ran with this imagination where imagining the homeless person begging for change and all that stuff having to replay. Is that the way it went? It's sort of this like one dive into your consciousness and imagination. So it feels very much like one consistent journey,
Yeah, it's just basically taking that word turning and riding it through and letting my imagination free associate around. It's sort of, in a way, it's sort of like a jazz improvising around a melody, but never straying entirely away from the melody. So it's all about turning, and that's why it ends up with the circle, which is basically the planet, which does feel flat to a lot of people because the circle is so immense that you don't feel yourself, you don't feel the curve of it at all. And the arrogance, I always felt, I love Nietzsche and have learned a lot from him, but I always felt there was something really profoundly arrogant about that whole notion of the eternal return as a way of affirming the life you lived. As the greatest affirmation would be that I would do it all again, exactly as I did it, and to live as if that's as if that's your primary motivation and belief. And there's something horrible about that, because if we all did it, then everybody would have to be eternally part of my story. Donald Trump would love that, but not too many. No, people who don't have quite the same sized ego, not so much. So.
Yeah. Well, would you have done it all again the same way? Is a question that I kept thinking about because of especially the dedication, but as all this stuff comes up in the book, would you wait it out to find Rachel, or?
Well, that's, again, if I hadn't, if we Rachel and I often talk about this, she has two sons and I have a son and a daughter, and those kids would not have ever existed if we had stayed together. And can I imagine the world without my kids in it? No. And she can't imagine the world without her kids in it. And so you have to feel as though you have to feel grateful even for how long it took and for how frustrating and difficult, I mean, she's was married once before. I've been married. This is my fourth time. As I said, fourth time's the charm. Um, but um, but yeah, you have to just assume that I wouldn't have been ready for this if it had happened sooner. It did happen sooner, and I wasn't ready for it. So now I am. All these other things, I know that it's just a kind of trick of thinking maybe things are completely random, but you can't live with that thought. You have to think that things happen the way they did to make other things possible. That may not have been the reason, but at least it did that. So let's affirm that. And so that's just a way of thinking, kind of, the counterfactual doesn't really get you very far. So
Yeah, it's true. Well, it's something that we can definitely relate to because, with Katie and
yeah.
I, it's that question comes up all the time. It's like, oh man,
Oh,
like we
yeah.
could have crossed paths so many times,
Well, the
and
thing is,
then,
what's interesting about that, in fact, is that, Rachel grew up in Newton in Massachusetts. I grew up in Brookline, adjacent towns. And we discovered that we both had the same pediatrician. So we might have been in his, when we were getting our shots or when we were had the flu or whatever, we might have been in the same, waiting room at that time without realizing it. So yeah, there's all kinds of yeah, you just never know. Never know.
yeah, definitely. Well, let's hear another poem.
Okay,
Yeah,
let's see. What was the other one? Oh, you had mentioned, okay, let me see. How about the another prose poem, the snow globe, right? Isn't that the one that you mentioned? I
yeah,
think
that'd be a good one.
that's good. Okay, snow globe. Yeah, snow globe. I could never cry, especially when everyone else was crying. No matter the occasion, whose funeral, whose suffering or sorrow, it wasn't that I suppressed the urge to cry, but that I felt no urge, only the sudden vacuum of clear vision from a dry eye, unclouded by anything beyond a slight embarrassment for not feeling enough to cry. Embarrassed as if I were the only one among them who was crying, as if not crying was how I couldn't control myself, which everyone else, I hoped, was too distraught to notice. Watching, for instance, my father and brother weeping at my sister's service, like Isaac and Jacob, Jacob and Joseph, clinging to each other unashamedly, head on each other's shoulders, their bodies heaving out big sobs, biblical moans and gasps their bodies suddenly had no room for, incontinently pouring out of them for everyone to see, though everyone else was crying too, and only I stood by, looking on as from a distance too great to measure, as if through the wrong end of a giant telescope, befuddled by how what filled them up so thoroughly could also join them to each other, merged into a single pouring out like water. And though I told myself that clarity required vacancy, it was only vacancy I saw. The vacancy I looked through as though I'd suddenly been enclosed in a snowless snow globe, becoming clearer, colder, more unshaken, the more their distant bodies shook.
And that was Snow Globe, another prose poem from Diver by Alan Shapiro. And there are a bunch of prose poems in this book, Alan. And you've had prose poems in books before, but I am curious what draws you to that form and how you feel that's different. Because if you listen to the voice, you still have that one of your trademark, like those long sentences that twist and turn and keep going.
Yeah.
It feels similar in a lot of ways, but then there must be something different too to have that form.
I don't have an answer to that, Tim. I'm sorry. You're right. I don't know what the hell a prose poem is, frankly, except I like to write them because I like writing sentences. And in fact, you know, a lot of the prose in these prose poems you could scan. They end up being kind of iambic pentameter units. And why I avoid the line, I guess I just want the poem, the sentences to run on uninterruptedly, so that's the only measure that's the only kind of rhythmical measure in the poem is the sentence. I know it's something that we talked about when I was on a couple of years ago, but as I say, I fell in love with sentences early in my writing career, from reading Victorian novelists, and I wanted to write sentences like George Eliot wrote, this is from Daniel Deronda, we cannot kill and not kill in the same moment. We cannot speak a loyal word and be meanly silent, but a moment is room wide enough for the loyal and mean desire, for the outlash of a murderous thought and the back inward stroke of repentance. It's without you could lineate that and that'd be a wonderful poem, but you don't need it because the clauses themselves are enacting the thought that they're describing. It's not just referring to a psychological state, not just designating a state outside the sentences, but recreating it in the way the sentences themselves are unfold. And that to me is, that's just great writing. That's what all of us try to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you feel like it's a challenge to yourself to keep the sentences going and keep the energy? It's sort of like, it feels almost like juggling a ball or pushing something, and you have to keep it rolling, and it's not exactly round. So it's like, it's like all over the place, but also there's like this momentum.
Yeah. And you also have to make it make sense. It has to make grammatical sense. Otherwise it's going to kind of collapse in on itself. So it is a bit of a challenge. But I don't know. To me, there's just nothing more expressive about the language than the syntax and then the relationship of clauses within a sentence, and it can be either mimetic, it can be acting out something, it can be embodying something, it can also be ironizing something or undercutting something, and or revealing something that you're trying to hide. What if you take the most important information in a sentence and put it in a subordinate clause, and have all of the main clause and the other, be something that you're trying to somehow distract from the, it's all of that, again, the great example of that is Browning's My Last Duchess, when I don't know if I can get this memory, but the Count, who's murdered his wife and is, everybody knows this poem, the My Last Duchess, when he says to the agent of the Duke that he's negotiating a dowry for his next wife with, he says, the Count, and he's trying to sort of make it seem as though, he wants to get as much money as he can, but he doesn't want to announce the fact that he wants money. But it's the main clause is how much money he wants. And what he puts in the subordinate clause is, oh yeah, by the way, I also love your daughter too. But so it's, and that just jumps off the page. So it's the Count, your master's known munificence is ample warrant that no just pretense of dowry shall be disallowed, though his fair daughter's self, as I avowed at starting, is my object. So he tries to bury something by putting in a concessive clause, but it also ends the sentence, and so you just anyway. So it ends up affirming the thing he's trying to deny. It's all in the psychological dynamic is all in the relationship among the clauses, and
Yeah. So when you're writing like this, how conscious are you of that? Like, do you think about is it like playing jazz? Is it like a riff that you just keep?
It's like playing jazz. It's like playing jazz. It's basically riding a feeling, and throwing yourself so thoroughly into the feeling that you trust that everything in the poem is going to be somehow contributing to the effect of that feeling. And of course, one of the most important elements is the grammar. And so, but I don't think a lot about it. But I do try to, I just try to ride the feelings, ride the thought, ride the insight, and trust that the sentence will take the shape it needs to take in order to say as fully as possible what it is I'm trying to say, which I don't know until I've said it. So yeah, so it is all improvised for sure.
Yeah. Well, definitely, it's got that jazz feeling for sure. Let's
Yeah.
go ahead and read another poem.
Oh, okay.
Whatever you'd like.
All righty. Okay, let's see. How about, okay, I'll read an elegy for a friend of mine. Actually, it's sort of appropriate for an interview like this. One of the greatest teachers I ever had was at Stanford is a poet named Ken Fields, and who died of ALS a couple of years ago, over a year ago. And he and I were very close friends. I was a student, but then we became really close friends. And then, as so often happens, we fell out. We fell out for the reasons that writers tend to fall out with each other, for competitiveness and vanity, and regarding the whole the struggle for recognition as a kind of zero-sum game. If I got something, that meant he wasn't going to get it, and it was just, well, anyway. So a friend told me that he was dying. And so I called him, and it turns out that the day I called him was the last day of his life. He died later that night. And we hadn't talked in many, many years. And he was really happy to hear my voice, and I was happy to hear his voice. That's sort of the arc of the poem. So it's called Lines on an Ex-Friend's Death in Memory of Ken Fields. And it's in different sections. They're numbered. So 1, if my brain doesn't know it's a brain any more than this tarmac I'm driving over to your funeral knows what tarmac is, then my mind is maybe like this heat shimmer receding as I approach, mistaking its freely rippling above the interstate for origin, unaware of what the rising up is every moment rising from. 2, what happened in my brain or to it when I heard that you were dying? What electrochemicals flooded through what long dried up neuronal tributaries to resurrect you for a moment as you were when we were drinking pals before the falling out, the never too petty not to cling to enmities, affections not yet diminishing returns on the zero-sum, quote, last infirmity of noble mind, end quote, you called a chicken run, where everyone pecks and scratches through shit-strewn dirt for scraps we too pretended to despise. But for a moment, there you were again in the old bar, Antonio's Nut House, next door to your wife's therapist, your shot glass raised for the weekly toast. While my sweetie sees her shrink, I go to the Nut House. And now we're seeing who can recite more Dickinson by heart. You do, of course, as always, till shot by shot the dashes are all turning into question marks. The bell of Amherst now less Amherst bell than Stettel, more Dickenstein than Dickinson. I heard a fly buzz when I died. I like a look of agony. I'm nobody. Who the hell are you? 3, I had to be egged on, guilted even by a mutual friend to call you on what would be your last day. Your voice phlegmy, tremulous, already otherworldly, and yet still unmistakably yours. But what surprised me, shamed me even, was the frank, wide-open pleasure in it, hearing mine, untainted by grudge or grievance, as if no time had passed, or all time had, for you at least, and in the walled prison of your dying, all you wanted was to tell old tales again, and pray and sing and laugh about who loses and who wins, who's in, who's out, all pacts and sex, dissolving beyond any need for blessing or forgiveness. When you say before we hang up, please, please, I'm begging you, get me a rabbi before it's too late. I want to convert. So I on cue can ask, why not a priest or minister? So you can deadpan, better one of you should die than one of us.
Yeah, a great elegy there. That was Lines on the Ex-Friend's Death for Ken Fields from Diver by Alan Shapiro. Alan, there's a great question sort of on the topic we were talking about last time by Mark Grenier. He says, I have frequently felt that the rhythmic heart of good poetry is derived from the normal rhythms of ordinary rhetoric and speech. Do you have any comments on this as it relates to poems? And one of the places Rattle came from is Jack Grape's workshops in Los Angeles. He was a poet and actor That was where Alan Fox started falling in love with poetry again, in his 50s. And Jack always says, write like you talk. It's one of his mantras. Like, don't try to write like it's not like you talk. Write like you talk. That's the starting place. And then eventually write like somebody would talk. But it's always this, and some people are loquacious and go on, and some people don't. But that's such a fundamental part of poetry as far as Jack Grapes goes. So I am wondering, with your long, elaborate sentences, how do you feel about that?
Well, you can hear the rhetoric. You can hear a lot of social idioms in the poems, telling jokes, making jokes in bars. The last stanza, a lot of that is not like ordinary speech because it comes out of Shakespeare. It's the last scene of King Lear. But I'm very much I am very attuned to idiom, to social idioms, and I do try to write like I speak. And I also try to transform ordinary speech through syntax to make it something other, even while being faithful to the social dynamic, the social energies of speech. I grew up in a household where, my parents spoke Yiddish primarily, and didn't teach us, so that they could speak in private in front of us, and we wouldn't know what they were talking about. But their English was inflected by Yiddish, so the Yinglish, that's how they put it. So I grew up with hearing, like my mother saying, my mother would say, Here, I need you to go down to the store to get me something. And I said, okay, I'll run down and get you. And she said, take my car. She said, no, I'll drive because your radio doesn't work. And she says, how far do you have to go that you have to listen? It's such a great sentence. Or from having too many customers, he didn't go out of business. That kind of Germanic inversion, and I love those kinds of culturally and historically inflected sentences or phrases, and I subscribe to that. I think you should, you don't want to sound like you've been dead for 200 years unless you purposefully are trying to sound like you've been dead for 200 years, but you want to sound like you live in the 21st century and that you're using all of the materials that come to you through your upbringing and where you lived and your education. The thing is, like, we live on and off the page. So I feel as though my work should be informed by what I read as much as by what happens to me when I'm out buying groceries, because those are all equally important parts of who I am. I'm never happier as a writer than when I can play the whole instrument of language, when I can go from King Lear, to King Kong, high culture to low culture, and be able to somehow go everywhere in between. The more impure the language is, the idiom is, the happier I am, and the more American I feel, because we live in a mongrel culture, as it is, which is the great thing about America, or used to be anyway. That we are a mongrel culture.
And the great thing about English language in general, all those invasions and inversions,
that's the thing, is that the purity itself is one of the great illusions. There is no such thing. When it comes to language, it's always changing, or culture, it's always changing. It's always coming from somewhere else. It's always cultural appropriation. There isn't any source, because the only reason we say something's a source is because we can't go back far enough. We haven't done the historical research where you'll find out, oh, that source isn't actually a source. That's an effect of other things that happened earlier. And so I want to honor that. The impurity of language is, to me, a great strength, a source of vitality for me. So, but speech is huge. Speech is incredibly important.
Yeah, definitely. Let's hear the next poem.
Next? Okay, let's see if I can find. All right, here another one that you'll hear like a lot of different idioms in this poem. This is a called "What's Wrong with This Picture," And it's like the Sesame Street game of what's wrong with this picture is like to identify the one serious inconsistency in each of these sections. They're all built around inconsistencies, contradictions, paradoxes, and to me, that's where for me, that's where where I'm most inspired is in those moments of paradox and inconsistency. So this is called the last section is about the Battle of Champions that took place in Argos in 500 BC, I think, between the Argives and the Spartans, and each side chose 300 warriors, and they battled to the death, and the last person standing would determine the winner. The last person standing, Orthiades, was then killed himself because he was ashamed that he didn't die with his men, so he killed himself. So, which in a militaristic world that we're living in, that's one huge inconsistency. Well, we got to keep killing. We have to keep losing men because we've lost so many already. And that's how we honor them, is by losing more of us, that kind of nonsense. Anyway, what's wrong with this picture? One, in my father's favorite story of his time at Saks, he's on break in the men's room, off the men's department, pissing, pretending politely, as we all do, not to notice the man beside him. His overcoat a black Burberry, unbuttoned, member between his still gloved hands, who, when he finishes, somehow zips up, and only then removes the gloves, finger by dainty finger, before he scrubs his hands and dries them and puts the gloves back on and leaves. 2. Only after my sister's death would my father in one breath apologize for disowning his only daughter for marrying outside the race, and in the next retract the sorry, because what the hell was he supposed to do, after all? It's just how he was raised, where he comes from. And don't be so sure, Mr. Big Shot, you wouldn't feel and do exactly what he felt and did if you'd been born then too. 3. My teacher wrote that only the criminally insane can integrate experience to the heart's desire, and only the emotionally sterile would not wish to. Only when he had his shot and beer, what he called his Irish handcuffs, every day at 5, but never earlier, could he convince himself that he was neither. 4. She lived life as if belief and desire, love and hate, made a Mobius strip on which the one turned into the other, though you could never quite say where it did or when. In any disagreement, however minor, she'd lower her voice to a hissing whisper so she could credibly accuse you of having raised yours to a yell. At bars or restaurants, she'd vanish from the table without saying what she wanted, so as to trap you between two choices, bad and worse, while ordering for her was just so like you, so presumptuous. Not ordering only justified again her lifelong sense of having been neglected, forgotten, wronged, so she could hate you in good conscience. 5. Don't be so sure it's how I wasn't raised. What the hell else am I supposed to do? I recycle, I keep up, I give now and then. I follow the market, careful not to know too much about where all the money's going to or coming from. Which is to say, I'm as outraged as the next guy. In fact, I am the next guy. Where I come from, everybody's reasoning is built on a quicksand of forgotten reasons. The heavier the thinking, the quicker the sinking. 6. Thus, the young African-American mover who votes Republican and believes racism is a lie spread by lefties like me is hauling all my 70 boxes of books upstairs into my study where, while he works, I sit and read Rebels Without a Clue. It's just how we were raised, where after all, we come from, or don't. 7. Geographically speaking, this happened earlier today. The Argive and Spartan armies disbanded and went home, so no one but the 300 champions chosen from each side could fight to the death. By day's end, only the Spartan Orthiades was left standing on the moonscape of that rocky plain, last of the 600 sealed in armor, shoved together in a bronze scrum to pile up mangled under hot sun in a shimmering stink. Orthiades is the only one among the nameless others whose name survives, but not because he was the lone survivor, but because ashamed for not having perished with his men, he did the honorable thing and fell on his own sword and died. His honorable name immediately fluttered up and away from his dishonorable body. His name delighted in the steaming viscera it rose from into a startling murmuration of other names that go on dying undyingly in the stories living bodies tell, whose names as well are restive for the same release into an everlasting swirling cloud of honor, lighter than the ink that holds it for a while to whatever page it happens to alight.
Yeah, and that was What's Wrong with This Picture,
Yeah,
again from Diver by Alan Shapiro. Alan, earlier on we talked about how you feel more free now than you've ever felt, in writing for your own pleasure. And I'm wondering how that shaped your poems. Is there a difference writing for yourself? Are you still thinking of the audience? And how does that change the way you approach poems by having the sense of freedom that you felt lately?
That's a good question. Yes and no. Do I think of an audience? No, because, I don't, I have a couple, I have a couple of friends who I suppose constitute my audience, and whose judgments I've sort of internalized and who I sort of feel looking over my shoulder while I'm writing. These very good, close friends whose opinions and judgments I trust. But beyond that, no, I don't think about anybody. I don't want to be banal. I don't want to be boring. I don't want to trade in commonplaces. I don't want to I don't want to sloganize. I want to find something fresh and new to discover in whatever it is I'm writing about. So I'm really just sort of thinking about making sure I'm not repeating myself, or I'm doing something different. I don't know about you. I haven't read. So I guess I've taken to heart Emily Dickinson's notion: tell all the truth, but tell it slant. So there's some political. I suppose you could interpret them as political poems in this book, but it's contemporary politics channeled through ancient Rome, or the ancient Greece is in the previous poem. Not writing about Iran or Afghanistan or the Ukraine, which is what I'm thinking of really but I it's not that I avoid being topicality. It's just that I just don't think I have anything to say about the news, that people haven't already said. I mean, have you read a good Donald Trump poem? I haven't. I don't.
Well, we have a few great ones over the years, but they're few and far between with respect to how many are written. Definitely, you could say that.
Yeah. So I don't know. But I'm not thinking of other people. No. As I said, one of the things I think I may have mentioned this the last time I was on. I realized what was liberating for me was I stopped caring about what other people think when I realized that nobody, in fact, is thinking about me at all. So it's a silly thing to worry about because there's really nobody. If I don't write these poems, nobody's going to miss them. They're.
Well, I beg to differ. I would definitely miss them. I want you to keep cranking out the books as long as you can.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering, like, what change that feeling makes over time. Are there things you give yourself permission to do that you wouldn't have done 20 years ago?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I mean, I think I allow myself to. I mean, I allow myself to fail. I'm not afraid of falling flat on my face. I remind myself, I've done this more successfully as I've gotten older, is to remind myself that I can put anything down on the page And by reminding myself that I can always crumple the page up and throw it away when I'm done writing it, but I try not to shackle my, I don't. I try not to shackle my imagination. I'm not interested in scoring points. I'm not interested in axes to grind. I'm not interested in sloganeering. I'm just trying to somehow figure something out for myself. And if I do it well enough, maybe someone else will find it interesting. But that's about as far as I go. I'm not trying to justify man's inhumanity to man. I'm not trying to end the war in Vietnam. I'm just trying to get through the day without hurting anybody. So, but it's fun. I have more pleasure writing now than I ever did before. And that has been true for the last several years. I'm also, I don't teach it. Well, I teach at Warren Wilson still from time to time, but I don't go to AWP. I'm not online. I have no social presence, social media presence whatsoever. And pay a price for that, I guess, but I just can't abide it. And it's hard enough to write the poems and to have a kind of full immersion in that experience. But if I have to sort of promote myself as well, forget it. I can't. I don't want to do that. It's one of the reasons why I've gone from publisher to publisher recently, is because they all want me to get on social media, and I just don't want to do it. I said, you have to do your part, I'm told. And I think, well, I thought I did my part by writing the poems. I'm not a promoter. I'm not a salesman. I don't want to do that.
Well, that definitely is a problem these days. I should say at this point, if you're enjoying the conversation and these poems, please do click the like button. Always half two people haven't clicked the like button yet who are watching live, and it always helps if you do, so click the like button now. And if you have any questions for Alan, leave them in the chat windows, especially on YouTube. That's the one I pay most attention to. But feel free to leave any questions and I'll pass them along. We probably have time for two more poems, Alan. Do you want to read a penultimate one?
Okay, I'll read my Donald Trump poem. I hope it doesn't offend anybody. It's pretty racy, but all of the racy details in this poem come out of Suetonius's biography of Tiberius, who was the emperor after Augustus. So all of this is, as to the extent that we know, it has some basis in truth. But this is about power, and I'm just and the sources of power, and the insecurities behind power. So it's called Tiberius on Capri. From the rampart, the sea glitter funnels westward, and the extravagance of blue air over it, the scattered islands between which the banked oars of triremes ply, while he, imperator, looks out over it all at everything, reflecting back his teasingly near absolute dominion. So almost a god, it's no surprise he's all the more obsessed with the ungodly, an insecure Achilles who can't stop thinking about his heel, his aging body, the final niggling plu that mocks him with the non-plu ultra each conquest used to promise, a maddening bead of mercury squirming out from under thumb despite how hard he presses. Those little boys, tiddlers he called them, hairless as fish, trained to swim between his thighs to excite his flagging passions with their licks and nibbles, and those unweaned babies put to his organ to nurse the mother they think is nursing them, when even their fresh lips affront him with what he can't do or feel anymore. He has them all hurled, babies and boys alike, from the rampart to the rocks below, where the breakers boom and slaves with fish hooks finish off the ones still breathing so they shouldn't suffer. His sulk more opulent than Achilles, growing deeper the more he shrinks in marble isolation as the table lengthens to where he can hardly hear the whispering at the other end. Prickliest and pettiest of gods, humiliated even now by something he can't let go or grasp, a time before the triumphs and ovations he once pretended not to want so he could fume at not receiving, a memory or fantasy he can't tell which, of himself, a little boy, training himself to be the tiddler of himself, his middle finger pushing on the soft head of his tiny pud, pushing it inward, back into itself, into the loins, and further through a hole that turns him into a girl until the finger pulls away and out of the hole it pops a little smaller or larger. The boy can't tell. So he does it over and over until he thinks he really is a godlike boy who's turned himself into a girl-like mother who's giving birth forever to the little boy he is.
Oh, there's a very intricate Donald Trump poem, Tiberius on Capri.
Yeah, yeah, on Capri, right. Yeah, I apologize if it offends anybody, but all the detail comes out of Suetonius. Blame him. Cancel him, not me. So
yeah, that's Diver from Diver by Alan Shapiro. There's a question here from Joanna Pendleton, who wants to know, it's a good one, how does revising and editing play a part in your writing? Does self-editing and revision play a part because his writing is like jazz? You know, given that you're sort of riffing and keeping this energy ball rolling and trying to, you know, hurl yourself into it, it seems like that doesn't fit with editing almost, you know? So well, how do you balance the two?
The improvisational feel of the poems itself is artifice. It's written to give that impression. I have primarily one reader or two readers, my poet Tom Slay and poet Jason Summer. I had more, but they all died. They got old and died. And I have so much fun working that there's always a kind of sadness when I'm done with something. So if I can show a poem to one of my friends, one of these two friends, and they say, well, I like how it unfolds, but I think it ends too soon. You got to keep going, and you go somewhere else. I'm never happier than when I can be turned back into the poem and get to live in it a little longer, because it's fun. It's just a wonderful way to spend time making stuff, converting horrible things into things that have a kind of, beauty or light, give off a kind of light. So no, the poems are edited. I usually can generate a draft or two pretty quickly, but then I need my friends to look at it, and then I can go back into it and rethink it or check out the beginning and move or have a new middle or something like that. So no, it's all there's a lot of editing that goes into the poems for sure, even though and they're better for it, there's no question about it. They wouldn't be nearly as good, and they wouldn't seem nearly as riff-like had they not been edited as thoroughly as they have been.
Yeah. I have a talk that I used to give about poetry in the subconscious, like the Zen of poetry. And one of the quotes that I use all the time was from you talking about editing itself and that feeling of being lost inside a poem, and you don't know you don't realize 4 hours have gone by. You're like, exactly. Where did those 4 hours go? Right. But you were so content to be that focused. Right. Do you feel, as time goes on and you do this, for decade after decade, do you feel it's easier to get into that state, or has it always been the same relationship with that Zen-like state? Yeah.
It's funny. What's different is that it's always the same, but the between times is different now, because when I was younger, I thought, it'll never come again. I'll never find it again. Or I always did, but I always lived in a state of low-grade anxiety that I wouldn't be able to reach that level of concentration. Now, no matter how much time passes between poems, I know that it'll come, that I've done it my whole life, and it's not going to stop. And it's heaven on earth. I mean, I get, this is also partly a function of being, of being diagnosed with ADHD and being in a state of perpetual distraction most of the time. So when I'm working and I'm in that deep immersive state, it's as close to heaven as you can find on earth, because time stops. There is no time, because they say, it's 9 o'clock in the morning, you look up, it's 4 in the afternoon. And that's a good day. That's a good day, no matter what. The poem could be really shitty. It doesn't matter. You spent a really good day, deeply concentrated on trying to make something. Trying to convert one thing into something else. And What could be better than that? How lucky, to have that to do. And, I'm 74. I hope to keep going as long as I can, but, this is something I will do until I'm dead. And I'll never have to retire from this, except when I leave, when I retire from life. But there's nothing like it. There's no pleasure like it. It's a form of ecstasy, really, of being pulled out of yourself into, and even if you're writing about yourself, you're still not in yourself. You're turning yourself into a problem that you're trying to solve, aesthetically. And it's as I said, my friend David Ferry said, writing is a way of being happy. Even if what you're writing about is how unhappy you are, because you're making something, you're converting, the shit of life into the gold of art. And it's nothing, if you're lucky. And even if you're not, you've had a good day. The bad days are when you just can't focus, that to me is hell, is distractedness. But concentration is the best.
Yeah. I mean, that dissolution of self, which happens, is the definition of nirvana in that tradition.
Exactly.
It's what you try to get, that Zen-like state. And some people sit and meditate to do it, and other people find poetry and lose themselves in the syntax of a long sentence. And that's still the same, not being caught up in your own drama. Temporarily. Yeah.
Totally. And basketball used to be the same way for me. I get into a game and then all of a sudden it's just, and again, independent of how I played, it was always fun to be on the court with other people and to be, it's like athletes talk about being in the zone. It's the same thing. It's the same state. The good quarterback has to slow the game up. It's all the same. Yeah,
it definitely is. One more thing I wanted to talk about is just where you feel like the state of poetry is now. You sort of, as you mentioned, you don't go to AWP, you don't do many readings, you don't have social media. You've kind of backed away from it. And it feels like, I don't know, there was this time where the institutions of academia sort of undergirded poetry for better or worse. I mean, there were great things that came of it. There were really big problems with that at the same time. And those are starting to fall apart. I just saw the Cleveland State Poetry Center is shuttering, from what I hear.
Wow.
Different programs are closing. There's a lot of things slowing down and dropping out. Readership is declining. But then there's other ways that people find poetry, which is social media and stuff. But then there's problems with that too. Like we trade one problem for another. I don't know. So what do you think about the state of poetry now compared to how it's been through your lifetime, where you had a sort of a trajectory, where you could get into poetry, become a professor, teach and write, and that was a career path, and that does not exist anymore. So how do you feel that the state of poetry is moving forward at this point when, we had the adjuncts taking over and sort of keeping it alive a little bit, but now that's falling apart. AI is going to destroy college pretty soon anyway. So what do you think poetry is going to do? It's a thing that you've dedicated your whole life to. Do you feel, I don't know, any worry or remorse, or do you feel positive about it?
I don't. I feel as though I sort of feel like I guess classical learning during the European Middle Ages, when the monks kept certain traditions of scholarship alive by copying manuscripts and preserving them. I feel as though I and a few of my friends are like monks. We're just doing our own thing as well as we can do it, and hope it'll find an audience at some point. The culture we have, again, it's hard to talk about this because, as you said, you're so right. There are, for every positive effect of technological change, there are these negative consequences as well, and it's hard to separate the good from the bad. We've had a very serious course correction in American poetry, where we have a much greater diversity of voices now than we ever had when I was growing up, and that's a good thing. only a good thing. As I said it before, the diversity is our strength. But I think I don't want to sound like an old crank, but I hate social media. I know it's here, and I know people said the same thing about the typewriter. They probably said the same thing about every technological change there are going to be casualties along the way, and I'm definitely a casualty of social media. But the damage it's done to our culture, our society, how debased it's made everybody, how it's polarized everyone you get to customize your exposure to information so that you're only hearing what you want to hear. Back in the day, we had only three television channels, ABC, NBC, and CBS. And we all watched the nightly news, and there was a certain mild liberal slant, but not like it is now between Fox and MSNBC or MS Now. We all were exposed to the same information. So we lived in a world where we could at least agree on a set of facts. Where we can't do that anymore. And then not to say that the 50s and 60s was such a wonderful time. I mean, I also lived through the 60s and the Vietnam War and all of that. But you could have a conversation with people. I could talk to now no one can tolerate, for all of our love of diversity, nobody can tolerate differences of opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, yeah. Well, you hit on exactly the thing, I think. In my 20 years of doing this, I remember a time where it was, finding somebody who had a strange opinion and it was different and unusual and a different perspective. It was like, wow, like that's a weird way to think. That's a cool poem. Like I never would have thought like that. And now, the social media, the way everybody is siloed into their own, confirmation bubbles. The poetry even that spreads on social media is the stuff that's just agreeing with the stuff that we already feel, and that's the kind of thing that we rally against. But it feels like such a uphill battle to try to spread actually any kind of diversity as far as the intellect goes. Anyway,
it's interesting to me. I was talking about this. I've got some, as you probably read, there's some poems in this book that are kind of racy, and there's a lot of jokes in the book because jokes are an important part of my psyche, my life. And there's a poem, I'm not going to read it, it's too long, called "The Aging Comic Reads the Room," and it's really about my relationship to the poetry culture of today, though it's about a comic who recognizes that the material that he loved when he was younger is no longer appropriate and he can't use it anymore because the room is different, the people in the room are different, and you have to take the audience into consideration. And again, that's another one of these kind of what's wrong with this picture moment where someone is emotionally attached to what he intellectually recognizes is probably not so good, or had done damage, but he still has a love of it, and that kind of, it's a poem. It's a hard poem to read because some people get offended, even though it's not me. It's a dramatic monologue, and it's about real things that were real and people's and these are they're about the values that people actually had. And I'm not repeating them to endorse them, but just to recognize that this was what it was like then, and it was a problem, and it's probably a good thing. But you can't even, it's like getting someone being canceled for using, an offensive word in a poem. Well, it depends. It should depend. It depends on how it's being used. Is it being used to normalize? To humiliate, then yeah, it should be canceled. But if it's used because it's part of the historical record in some way that you are glad you no longer live in, but recognize that it still had some effect on you, then not to do it is to sort of face your own history. And I thought we weren't, we don't. Anyway, I don't know. I don't have an answer to any of those questions. I don't know. All I know is that I don't have a whole lot of time left in the world, and I want to spend it writing these poems and walking my dogs and spending time with my bride. So, but no, I tell when I tell young writers, if and this is probably not a good thing to say, if you want to become a writer, get off of social media. But then if you get off of social media, no one will ever hear of you because that's where reputations are made now.
Mm-hmm.
That's the work that people do is they get known on, on these platforms. There's really no other way to do it. So if I were younger now, if I were 21, if I was 22, graduating college, there's no way I would be a writer now.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be writing poetry. I wouldn't have had the life. You're right. I had a great run. I benefited from white privilege. I didn't invent white privilege. I don't feel guilty about it. But I had advantages that other people didn't, and now people are more and more having those advantages, which is a good thing. But I could not imagine making my way in the world as a writer now, like I was able to when I was younger. It's so much harder now for young writers. It is so much harder. It's not easier. And I feel bad for students of mine that are really talented and really want to make their way in the world. And I just know how they're going to do it. I don't know how. The opportunities are just sort of shoulder. You could go, when I graduated college, I could move to New York City, get a part-time job as a coder in a marketing research firm, and live in Spanish Harlem on 96th Street in Lexington, without any problem.
Mm-hmm.
You could, the culture allowed for that kind of life. It stamped it out. It's no longer possible. You can't do that.
Well, there is. I mean, there are people, and we find them all the time, who love poetry, love language, love the words for the sake of that. And I love what you said about, feeling like the monk, in the Middle Ages, keeping that flame alive is what, it very often feels like we're doing now in the face of all the social media and the politicization of everything and the strife that we have, where just the pure love of language is what matters and what we want to keep.
And not what your attitude is toward this or that social issue, but just love of language, love of beauty, love of making things, being a maker. That's the old meaning of the word poet, is to be a maker. It doesn't, it's not, poetry is obviously participates in politics in some ways, but if it doesn't reach deeper than that, if it's drenched in politics, but if it's merely that, if its roots don't go beyond that, it's not going to be very good.
Mm-hmm.
Never is.
Yeah, well, definitely. Well, let's hear one last poem, Alan. We'll wrap up.
Okay, I'll read this poem. Since we began with Dante reading that beautiful poem for his son, I'll read a poem for my son. Though it starts with it's called In the Mourner's Prayer. In the Kaddish, in the Jewish prayer for the dead. One of the interesting things about it is that nobody's mourning. Actually, the translation of the mourner's prayer is just all about the greatness of God, the glory of God. God is the King of the universe, and so it's all just adoration for Yahweh, which I think is interesting. Let me see if I can find this. I think it's. Here it is. So this is just about that, and then connecting my father saying Kaddish for his father while my father was dying in the hospital, was repeating the prayer, and you could hardly make out any of the words, and so it reminded me of my son when he was a little infant in the crib in the morning making his sort of pseudo words. So it's called In the Mourner's Prayer. In the Mourner's Prayer, nobody in fact is mourning. Nobody's crying, why me, or help me, or are you even listening? Even while both voice and body buckle over with the weight of all that holiness adored, extolled, and lauded. Like my delirious father saying Kaddish for his long dead father for the last time on his own death day, from a hospital bed, his voice becoming looser, less distinct, the more the gaps shrunk between the words into a babbling of what would have been impossible to follow if not for the keening rhythm of the wordless praise. And now that half-sung, half-sobbed out, unintelligible adoration reminds me of those mornings when my infant son would wake up singing vocables of proto-words in almost sentences that sounded fresher for the senselessness that still clung to his sounding of them out. So like a god he seemed just then, a god who doesn't know he is a god or even what a god is or for, as he drifted needless and unbounded on a sea of sound that he created out of himself according to his will, while I stood listening a little longer at the threshold, sorry as much for my sake as for his, that it was time to bring his early morning singing to a close.
Yeah, what a great poem to end on. That was In the Mourner's Prayer from Diver by Alan Shapiro. Alan, thanks for being a guest. Such a pleasure, getting to read a new book of yours and getting to talk to you tonight. I mean, thanks for being able to reschedule too, given the problems before.
No problem.
I really appreciate it.
Tim, it was great. It's always fun to talk to you. It's really great. Thank you for all the work you do. Thank you. It's great.
Yeah, thanks. Well, definitely my pleasure, and so glad to have you on. Thanks, Alan.
Okay. Thanks, man.
Yeah. Well, that was Alan Shapiro. You can find this book, Diver, at the book's website, which is unboundedition.com. That's unboundedition.com. Find Diver there. Find all of Alan's books. Like he said, he's been moving through different publishers, so you got to find and explore, but you'll find his books if you want to, and I hope you do. Now we're going to take a quick break and go to our prompt lines. And the prompt for this week, if you remember, was to write a poem that uses the present tense as one of the ways in which it creates tension. Now, if you submitted a poem in time by Sunday night at midnight, you received an email at some point on Monday with the Zoom link. Then we had to move, of course, to today, so Thursday. If you're able to come and you're here and watching the Zoom link, join us on Zoom to share your poem. And we'll be right back with a whole lot more poetry. And we're back. Thanks so much for your patience. I'm here with our creative editor, our prompt poems editor, and my wife, Katie Dozier. Hey, Katie, how you doing?
I'm doing great. That was a really interesting discussion. I have to say, I feel almost like I have to defend social media now. If we're allowed to disagree, I think I would love to have Alan on to talk more about it and about his stance on social media. Because I would say a lot of good comes out of it too, right? Like we have the chance to expose people who don't normally read poems, for example, by sharing on social media. Because I've realized that the absolute best I can feel about having written a poem is someone that I know is not at all in poetry commenting that they really like the poem, even though they normally hate poetry. And that to me is like my mission.
Totally agree. And then there's poems going viral, the good poems that do from Rattle. They do sometimes from, the Good Bones, things like that.
Yeah.
So there's a silver lining. Maybe it's more, maybe it's the main thing. I don't know. You could argue about that.
I think sometimes I think it's not that we need to do better at accepting the good or appreciating, accepting the bad and appreciating the good, but more that we need to like be able to hold them both at once. Mm-hmm. I don't think we can blame social media for everything that's wrong.
Well, I definitely know. That sounds like maybe
I wish we could. We wouldn't have as much wrong.
It sounds like an episode of the poetry space. Should we start?
Yeah, I know. It's back there like planning. Anyway.
Okay.
All right. So we can remember the prompt.
We can remember. Yeah,
yes.
It's 10 days ago, 11 days ago now. Write a poem that uses the present tense as one of the ways in which it creates tension.
Yes.
So what'd you come up with, Katie?
So I wouldn't describe my poem as exactly tense, but it's present tense for the most part, I believe. And love can involve tension, right, guys?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. On the road. Every pretty word is beaten into scattered places. Haiku is a town written in Hawaii, Riverstone's not far from us in Texas, with its stanza-brick streets and the artificial enjambment of its concrete-walled lakes. Even in Death Valley, the rain comes for us all. Super bloom, the perfect conditions for you. We speak of such scattered punctuation. Blue equals period, red equals semicolon, green equals comma, yellow equals exclamation mark, purple equals M dash. Then stop to gather them up all by the fistfuls. Rolling hills, even the L's play along. With the grass knitting to my hair, I am lost in the tossling of tallies. How many picnics will we share? How many watermelons will we spit the seeds from? At the farmer's market, I notice lemons are now sold seedless. Every crooked head a sunflower. Closing in on home, and we're greeted by the bluebells reciting triolets in the median. Faith makes every act one of confirmation. Useless, useless, heavy rain driving into the sea, Jack Kerouac. This second, we turn right into an entirely new station, and this left can only feather what's most unknown, the destination. The best I can do, cut carnations.
Yeah, well, that's a great. What do you call it? What do you call a longer hyben?
It's just a hyben. I mean, Basho didn't have to call it anything in the narrow road deep north. Just a hyben, but it's my longest one in, of course, the hyben crown that we've been working on all month, which ends today because it's the last day of National Poetry Month, which makes me kind of sad.
It is. It's April 30th, and that's the day where I have to make a haiku from your original opening section of the hyben, which I've had all day, and I have not written the rest of it though. So I have the haiku. And yet after
it'll
the
come to you.
It'll come to it will.
Don't worry, you've had a day.
Yeah. It's okay. Anyway, so now let me see what I wrote. So but that was a great hyben, Katie. I love all the weaving of it.
Yeah, it's the first time I've definitely taken someone's whole haiku and inserted it, but I think Kerouac would be cool with it.
I think he would. Yeah, definitely. He told me. Okay, and now this is mine. It's a story you are appearing in.
Oh.
But not a love story.
Well, the plot thickens.
This is called Mercy. Our oldest calls from the yard, and Katie calls from her office, and the world narrows to the ring of the sudden ringing of what is it, what's wrong, until I open the door, and that narrowing contracts to the baby bird dead in our doorway. But no, it's 3, and not dead, but worse, broken, the tiny springs of each tensile body sprung while the gears inside still turn like a set of toys a toddler smashed, one wheeling on the simple levered work of its one working leg, while another extends a featherless wing as if stretching for the future flight from which it flew, and a third can only move the soft orchid of its orange beak into a desperate funnel that opens and closes, while my daughter, distraught, paces at a distance, the blur of her so secondary to the scene she's been witnessing that I don't see her at first. So I send her in through the garage while I get my shoes and a shovel and a broom and a box, and Katie hugs her while I do what I do. And when it's done, I check the nest, tucked between the transom's grill and the half moon of glass above our door, and find 2 more chicks dead, too weak to flee whatever it was that drove the others out, mites or disease, or maybe the mother died first, I think, killed by a neighbor's cat so couldn't feed them, their hunger like a distant song on the wind. Only later, after cleaning the empty nest from its sill, the mother bird returns, a bright worm in her beak like a second tongue, and when she lands in the lattice where the nest had been swept clean of her care, she's clearly confused, hops right, then left, looking down the dark plank of the doorframe, and I swear, though she doesn't have shoulders, she shrugs before leaping backward into life. And I know that look is how I felt on the phone when a stranger called to say my father was dying, was dead, and I stood there thinking more than how strange it seemed not to care, but also how odd that anyone watching would assume I should. There you go.
Oh, that was really beautiful.
Well, thank you.
Of course, that event was really harrowing when it happened. It was very traumatic. And in fact, Joe wrote a poem about it on her own, too. Have you showed her this yet? Or
no,
not
I
yet?
forgot that I wrote it until I
well, I think you owe your daughter this poem. And Joe wrote a really beautiful poem about it, too. But it's a really beautiful turn at the end, too.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it was just describing it in first person, which was the task.
And then you employed another skill of the short lines and this almost singular sentence feel. I don't think it was literally one sentence, but
I think it was. Actually.
Was it really? Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Well then, sorry, I didn't want to say that. Can't see the whole thing, but yeah. But that was really beautiful. You gotta warn me if you're gonna bust something like that.
Well, sorry, I forgot about it. Actually, okay. Anyway, let's see what else we have for.
First, we're gonna go to our community host, Dick Westheimer.
Right. Yeah, you warned me Dick might not be here, but then he is. We are so in luck to have Dick Westheimer.
Dick was at another reading earlier.
It's nice for somebody to say they're in luck because I'm here. Just makes me feel all good inside. Yes, the reading got out just in time, and I just got home to hear Alan's last poem, which was wonderful.
Well, it's perfect that I screwed up at the very beginning and had an entire collapse of the software. Which
see what happens when you're not here, Dick?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad that I missed the disaster. And when I pick it up, there will be no disaster because it will be edited on YouTube. We had such a wonderful community reading on Sunday. It was a little smaller, so we actually got time at the end for a little 15-minute lively discussion about submissions and people talking about that. We had Chelsea McClellan doing a fabulous job queuing up people's poems, and Dion read Bob Hickok's poem at the reception and did just a splendid job of breaking it down and discussing the poetics. I think people were engaged, and the poetry was just wonderful.
Great.
And so, loved it. Glad you weren't there, or wish you were there.
Well, that's good. We had the one art reading earlier, so we still were out of reading on Sunday. So, yeah.
Yeah. But it's good. I think there are people who show up, great poets who show up, who just might feel nervous around you too. So
I still don't understand. I think it's more, to be fair. I think it's not us. I thought about it because you said that.
You say that all the time. I know. I get to comment on this. Before I met you, I was super nervous to read a poem in front of you, like really nervous.
I just don't understand that.
Well, I'm sorry. Just no.
The not being live streamed, though, I understand more.
Yeah, that part.
That
is something too. But
some people
won't.
That,
and then people might feel bad if they're nervous reading in front of you, and it's normal. I felt really nervous. I felt nervous for the first year that I was doing this. Wow. Like I only it's okay. I'm somebody I grew up theater, blah blah blah. It's okay to feel nervous, friends.
Okay.
Yeah, trust is.
I concede the point.
Thank you.
People ascribe status to you, and just. I know you can't see it, but other folks do.
But that's why we love you. We're glad you can't see it.
Yeah. And speaking of status, my host this month will be none other than Francesca Bell.
Oh, that's
wonderful.
Exciting.
Yeah.
And she's very excited to do it. She's been sort of in hiding the last year from public events. And she said, this will be a great way to come out and do it. And every poet I've asked has said yes. So,
Good. And then if they say no, you'll out them on air. No, just kidding.
no, you won't know.
Son of a bitch,
You won't-
Bob.
Be like, you could say no, but I'm going to tell everyone.
No, I very much give people the
Of
out
course.
because it is an obligation, and some folks are very busy, but
Of course.
we've had great poets, and we're gonna cycle through some of them again because of the great work they did. So yeah, I'm excited. We are, and I'm sorry, Katie, we're gonna hold it on the 31st.
That's good. It's going to be an interesting end of the month next month. So,
Yeah, and I
with
know
the
it's really
submission.
hard for
it's
you,
okay.
but
You have to do it when it works for you. It'll be on the 31st, and I think it's good. It will just always be the last Sunday of the month, so that's good.
yeah, well, I'd hoped to avoid that, but we have tons of family in town, family reunion, so I can't. I could do it, but I'd be that guy who sneaks away while everybody else is visiting. So anyway, I am just so thrilled that I get to do it, and I love. It's the first time I've hosted a reading series, and it's a wonderful experience. I really enjoy it.
Great. Well, we really appreciate you doing
You
it.
do.
So, poem, present tense, tension. Here we go. Even the title's in the present tense. The garden speaks in muted confusions. Come, it calls. Stay away. It's moody, depressive, acts like a husband who wants you to ask about his ED until you do. It's so hot the seedlings complain. How are we to live like this in this heat? The blueberries blossomed a month too soon. They tell me today to get out the nets to protect their fruit now instead of in June. But there are no birds. They hide in the shade of the box elders. Our patch of Siberian irises must fear missing out and caper in their pretty violet sundresses too soon, like eager teens. Look at us, they shout. I say you aren't invited until mid-May. I sit on the bench near where the zinnias will go. A mockingbird hollers at me from a nearby tree. Are you going to mope or get your hands dirty? It glares at me. Both, I sigh. Kneel, begin to pull weeds. Even they seem fine, being relieved of their obligations, and lie in a pile listlessly. We had a month-long premature drought and heat wave, and it's crazy what's happened.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you, and I look forward to the other poems.
Thanks very much, Dick.
Yeah, thanks so much,
Thanks.
Dick. That is Dick Westheimer, our community host, Prompt Lines community host. What's it called?
Community host.
Community host, Dick
We don't have to
Westheimer.
put prompt in front of literally everything.
Well, you are trying for the SEO. I know.
Well, we're succeeding on the SEO, frankly,
Well,
with
very
the
good.
prompt words. So proofs in that Google.
Well, next let's go to Dale Matthews.
Oh, okay.
Hi, Dale. How you doing?
Hi, I'm glad to be back. This is my second time here.
Oh,
Great to
wonderful.
see you.
Yeah.
It's lovely. Yeah. Well, this I wrote about the present. I had been thinking about an experience I had a couple of weeks ago, and I wasn't getting anywhere because I was trying to write it in the past. And when you gave us this prompt, I thought, okay, try. It's called Bobcat in Dallas. I'm pulling into my daughter's drive in Casa Linda when I see it, as big as a dog and square like a terrier. I'd heard a bobcat killed a dog in her neighborhood a few weeks back, and this has got to be the one. When it sees me leave the car, it doesn't run. It takes me in with a turn of its head and continues to the next yard, prancing like a horse trained in dressage, but freer. No hurry at all, as if it has all the time in the world. Already, I like it more than any dog I know, maybe have ever known. I feel bad for the grieving family, but if we accept that time eats us all, is it worse that this wild cat occasionally gets to have a dog. A bouncy nonchalance shows the whole suburban scene for just a temporary thing. The landscape wakes. Lawns shake off their bricks and tiles, pipes and wires, and see themselves as rolling plains, the colors of this bobcat's coat.
Well, Dale, I thought this was such an excellent use of the present tense. So I love your story about how you couldn't figure out how to write it until it was present, because it just has so much more immediacy, of course, in the present tense too. And it feels so much more exciting. It feels like we get to be in that experience with you, but we know you're safe because you're able to write the poem at the same time. So
It wasn't the least bit frightening. It was just gorgeous. It was just something so stunning. But thank you for letting me be here. This was fun.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah. Thanks,
Thank
Dale.
you.
It was Dale Matthews with Bobcat in Dallas. And there's a bobcat that lived, he spent like every day for a summer sleeping in the yard next door in Wrightwood. And I was just out, I'd be raking leaves, it'd run right by me. And I never thought, it's just like a big cat.
My mom is very scared of bobcats.
I don't
in
understand
Florida,
that.
she has one near her, and she's very scared. So I'm hoping your poem inspires her to see the beauty of the bobcat, but to stay away also.
Yeah, they're cool. I mean, it did kill a dog, but hey,
That's rough. That's
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much,
you.
Dale. It was Dale Matthews with Bobcat in Dallas. And next, let's go to Mary Lisa D. Diminishes, our reigning prompt poet of the month.
and today's the last day. Today's
Oh,
the last day to be queen
Yes.
for a week.
You'll retire your sash to the next one.
yeah. I like to share, so it's all good.
And that is, I'm going to utilize that, Mary Lisa, to say, everybody get your poems in too, because the poems are due for the month. So thank you for that, Mary
Lisa.
Lisa.
Due in 2 hours. So
get them in.
Yeah.
Oh, I also had another reading today. So, wow, yeah, busy month.
Great.
Busy month. All right, here I go. In the kitchen of the Mays Landing Cafe. It's this mutual act of consumption, an intimate act of survival and joy to the senses. The aroma of spring rolls and curry, or the smell of the grill's heat on meat, butter on potatoes, tomatoes topping pasta, soups too many to name. Ingredients become words spoken between people, become conversations over toast, become secrets told over coffee. We digest. We offer portions of what we ordered to share with others. We take tastes. We bite in, then go, more satisfied than when we came, feeling closer to the stars, more intimate, as though we can hear them speaking. We forget about time for a while, in the be here now. A picnic table on a cool night with leaf and dirt smells kicked up in the walking and the air under the trees meeting our faces. Me, I always wonder what we give back to the world that gives so much, but then remember those who have not. Then I think of how unfair the way the world works is. Then I think of bees, and the be here now disappears. Is existing all just some chaotic thing, or is there an order? I stir the pot. Soon we'll all be hungry again, but not yet.
Well, Mary Lisa, I really enjoyed this, and particularly the first line of the last stanza with the play on bee and bees, and it made me think of Emily Dickinson, in this nice way. So thank you for that.
Well,
and
thank you for the invite.
Great job. You wrote multiple poems this week. Am I allowed to say
I
that?
did.
So way to go on that. And that was a first for you, I think. So way to go.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, it was.
Yay.
Okay. Yeah.
Thanks, Mary Lisa.
Thank you.
That's great. Thanks, Mary Lisa.
And of course, if anyone missed Mary Lisa's wonderful winning prompt poem of the month, please go and check that out on rattle.com.
Yeah, just go click the back button.
Yeah. And then click the rattles to give her credit.
Definitely.
For
Yeah, we
her
don't say
great
that.
poem.
Make sure you give it rattles.
Yeah.
We have a whole ranking. There's a top 1,000 list, like the whatever it's called when they used to rank music. Do they still do that? Is there still like a Billboard top?
There is a Billboard Top
Okay.
100, actually, I think.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, there's a rattle top 1,000. So rattle it. Get your favorite poems up higher. Anyway,
Yep.
that was Mary Lisa D. Diminishes with In the Kitchen of the Maze Landing Cafe.
Yep.
Let's go next to, I think Peg Duthie has been on before, but not for a long time. A regular contributor to Rattle over the years. It's great to see you, Peg.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, I actually can't make most of the prompt Rattlecast because I have rehearsals most Monday nights. So this is actually the first time I've submitted to the invited prompt.
Great.
Oh,
So,
very cool. Yeah,
yeah.
well, so glad you're here. Yeah, it's great to see
Yeah.
you. And where are you calling from?
Yeah.
Peg?
I am in Nashville, Tennessee.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Great.
I really enjoyed Tennessee when I visited there once. I had considered living there for a while actually, but it's nice.
Yeah, it's a great place.
Very cool. So what do you have for us?
So the poem I submitted is called Let There Be Fashioning. So, nothing fits the way you want it to, and you're glaring at a fabric porcupine, that is, a tomato cushion with dozens of flathead pins, ready for you to pluck them, pierce flimsy store-bought patterns padded out with scraps of thicker, heavier papers, to better shape blouse and slacks to where you bulge and how you swell. How you're swell, I say, but you scowl at me too. To joke as tired as how you're feeling, from always having to calculate, sometimes by eye and sometimes through trial and error and more error, what you're allowed to show and whether it will tail on you in ways you aren't asking for and cannot mend. If whom you might be beholden to has shears for eyes and, slicing at everything, balls it all up and bends it before you take a single step or purse your lips, be it for slinging a bon mot or sighing into a kiss. Who knows what you could be doing, were the world less fearfully made, less about cutting people down to the sizes of what's on a rack. I could weep at the waist, but you're straightening up, the better to curve yourself into the creator, to piece together what you hold into something fitting to hold you just so.
Yeah, I love that ending.
Yeah, definitely. And
Yeah.
I've loved all the images of the pins, and I really felt like I was in this poem in a cool way. It's not a world that I visit too often, so it was definitely neat. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much. Yeah, it was Peg Duthie with Let There Be Fashioning. Yeah. And next, let's go to Bijwishit Mishra.
Hi, Tim and Katie.
Hey,
Good to
Biz.
see
Great to see you.
Biz.
I mean, I see you on TV. I mean, face to face.
I am seeing you, Biz, and I'm happy too.
Thank you.
good.
So am I.
Yeah. So I believe, now I haven't looked at this since Sunday, but I think you have 2 haiku for us. Is that correct? Is that yes? You
Yeah,
pulled
I've
it
got
up.
the
and I was-
shortest poem. I mean, it's like the present tense. Before I can say it, it's gone.
Well, you can read this one twice. How about that?
Oh, thank you. I would love to. I'm so shy. It's called Crosstalk. Actually, there's a name for without title. It's technically they call it Sudoku, like 2 pairs of haiku, but the second one has got like I think 577 or something. I don't follow that, but there is a form where there's a paired haiku. It's called Sudoku, 6 lines, I think.
Oh, neat. I didn't know that because I was wondering because I was like, this is technically a sequence, right? Because it's titled, but yeah. Okay.
Somebody told me I just wrote it even before once. I didn't know. I just paired them and visually to make them look different. I just put the second one like 2 persons have written it. Basically 2 perspectives. So somebody said it's like Sudoku. So I didn't know before that.
Well, I didn't know either. We're learning today, so that's great.
It's called Crosstalk. Neither of us happy at midnight. Bathroom mirror. The 2 quiet reflecting electric toothbrushes.
I'm waiting for you to read it again, Biz.
Oh,
Hit us again.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Neither of us happy at midnight. Bathroom mirror.
The two quiet reflecting. Electric toothbrushes.
Well, I really enjoy this because it is both one of those that I think is like we were talking about when we did the One Art Haiku anthology reading, how in that anthology this year there's so many poems that are at once funny and then you're like, oh, there could be some seriousness to this too. And I think that both of these have that depth and the crosstalk, and we're learning about a whole new form of haiku too. So what more can we want from you this week, Biz?
Thank you very much, Kim and Kitty. It's always good seeing you like this.
Good seeing you,
Biz. Yeah.
Thanks, Biz.
All right, thanks.
Okay,
There's Biz
good night.
Mishra.
I'll go back to the YouTube.
You'll go back to seeing us
on the other side.
On the other side. Thanks, Biz.
Okay. There's Biz Mishra with Crosstalk. And next, let's go to Brooke Lehman.
Hi, Tim and Katie.
Hi, Brooke.
Yeah, great to see you.
This is my first time, so I feel so honored to be here.
Oh,
great. And where are you calling from?
Charlotte, North Carolina.
Oh, lovely. Well, that's wonderful. We're so glad you're here. And I thought that this is a very beautiful poem, so I'm glad that you were able to come on the change date and read it for us.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I'll just share. So it is an obad, and an obad is a poem about having to depart from a beloved, usually at dawn. And this is an obad, but it's a bit of an unconventional one. So that's all I'll share before I read it. Obad for my friend who is depressed. Believe me when I say, I am no stranger to the company of the sweat stains on the ratty t-shirt I've been wearing to bed for 3 years and rarely take off. My most frequent companion, body odor. Hear me out when I say, I know the numbing chorus of crickets in the low hovel of my bedroom mess at 2 a.m. when most of the world sleeps, but my skin burns like a record needle that scratches, repeating my worst hits. I've watched the fan blade spin for hours now, so I crawl out to my armchair, read Louise Glick for a few more, then move to examine the succulents as they grow invisible nanometers in the silence. Watch moonlight curve over the piano that I wish I could bang out Beethoven on, but know the neighbors will call the cops. No amount of melatonin, weed gummies, or sleepy time tea makes me sleepy. I've memorized the psychedelic sleep track of someone named Gunther on Insight Timer, and yet here I am, still wide awake. Starstruck from scrolling too long, I'm brittle and aroused. See, I know the heavy weight of lifting a spoon from my cereal bowl to my mouth when morning finally arrives. Light, skirting around the oaks, stirs those who are well awake. The berries turn my milk into a blue lake, the dark departing, and I feel sad, but it's something.
Well, I really enjoyed the journey that we went on, both in terms of the actual poem and then, saying this, it's like the best version of I Know How You Feel, right? To actually walk through that and to be able to experience that. And then the details that you included in this are so immersive and amazing. And I must say, I had trouble sleeping in the middle of the night last night, and I was thinking about your poem and how much I enjoyed it. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Yeah.
So that was Brooke Lehman with Obeyed for My Friend Who Is Depressed. And everybody says Obad, and I think I've said it wrong my entire life.
I think maybe you have, but I don't know. I mean, your track record when it comes to anything that's vaguely French is so strong.
Well, we had this one poem, and it's by Ron Offen, called, and this is early on in Rattle. Mm-hmm. So and it's called Obeyed for One Dismayed. or obad for one dismayed. And it's got 2 rhymes. It's a form of sonnet where there's an internal rhyme in every line. And so I just assumed that Ron, who is a longtime editor of Poets Free Lunch, knew how to pronounce it. And so I just always thought that was. And it was funny because just like last week, somebody said that, and I realized that I've been saying it
Well, is that like when we started saying Hyben and everyone was like, it's Hyboon, and we're like, actually, you can say it both ways. And then finally, like, Roberta Beery came on and was like, you can say it both ways. And then everyone was like, oh, okay.
No, but I do. Yeah, I think, I don't know. Sometimes you just have been doing it wrong. So.
I think I'm interested in writing, and oh God, now I can't even say it. I'm going to say it wrong.
I think obad is right.
Okay.
Anyway.
Just make it good, not bad. And then
please do. Okay.
Like Brooks Bone. Yeah.
Let's go next to Carla Schwartz.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Hi,
we can. Hey,
Carla.
I'm coming in from Manchester, New Hampshire in a Cadillac Lyrique with the windshield wipers going.
That was my favorite beginning to any of your segments. I felt like the start of a slam
It's
poem.
a very poetic name for a car, by the way.
It is, but I'm enjoying also your pearl necklace tonight, so that's pretty exciting.
Thank you. Yeah, we went out to dinner. So
that's nice.
As Katie knows, and nobody else yet knows, that I have this hi Ben, and it is it's unusual. I wrote it very spontaneously. There was the prompt, of course, this week was to write in present tense, but also somebody had posted somewhere that, oh, you need to write about this, your worst subject in school. And I couldn't think of anything except for the fact that I am left-handed and I got really bad grades in handwriting. So and they gave us grades in handwriting. So this is the poem, and it is called Writer Can't Write. Here it is, my left-handed writing, cursive connection, cursed like a broken wheelbarrow limping along, my worst attempt at learning. No matter how hard I try, my teachers, oh, they think it's chicken scroll, chicken scroll, chicken scrawl. Voice to text, the word, period, only a dot.
Well, Carla, I thought that this was one I enjoyed wrapping my head around. And also, how have we not really seen Hyben before that the title functions so much like a haiku by itself? Like, how is that not something that we've seen before? I don't really understand, but I think you're onto something. And
yeah,
it's
monoku
really
title.
I know it's the title. If Kat names her book.
Yeah. A dojaku.
title. Yeah, that's true. It's speaking my language there for sure. Thanks for joining us after the fun dinner.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Thank
Bye,
you so
Carla.
much.
Thanks.
Good night.
Good night. Yeah, that was Carla Schwartz with Writer Can't Write.
Gosh, grades for handwriting. Things have changed.
They have. They even teach. They don't do that at all anymore, do they? I don't think so.
I don't know. And then ironically, Joe has better handwriting than you and I could ever dream of.
She does. All right, let's go next to Angie Blake Moore.
Hi.
Angie,
Hi,
yeah, great to have
Angie.
you here. Thanks for joining.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm really excited to be here.
Where are you calling from?
Alexandria, Virginia.
Great.
I commute to my teaching job in DC every day, and then it doesn't feel as great. But you know.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's rough. Yeah. Well, we're glad you're here with us tonight, and I found your poem. Your poem really stood out to me in submissions. It woke me up. We'll say that.
Thanks. I'll take that as a compliment. It's called Banana Trick. Before the midnight screening of the Rocky Horror Picture Show at Harvard Square, a grinning boy gets up in front of everyone and jumps onto a red velvet covered platform. The lights throw a science fiction shadow of him on the screen, thinning him out like taffy. We sit in near silence, the only noises a small shuffling of shoes, the rustle of candy boxes on the gummy floor. He does a feat of sorts. He brandishes a bruised banana like a sword. First, he peels the banana swiftly, rids the body of its leathery skin, its unnecessary, tired clothing. The meaty crescent shines in the colored lights, a moment of sad glory recognized. Then the boy winks and crams the whole banana into his mouth. Elongated moon, unbroken. Last, he slides it back out, slippery bow of yellow. A surprising utterance from the tunnel of his mouth, half arc transformed. Our hoots fill the theater. We clap recklessly, kick the seats in front of us, eye the banana with hunger. The curving fruit is shiny with his spit, jewel-like and heavy.
Well, that seems a little dangerous, I have to say. don't try this at home, people.
No. I love how you wrote this in the present tense. I know that's literally the prompt, but like imagining the same poem but written in the past tense, like we get to feel like we're in the theater with you experiencing this, right? And it's fascinating to me. One of the things I've always wanted to do and have never managed to do is going to a midnight showing of the Rocky Horror Picture Show, and I feel like this clinches it. I have to do it. You know, I don't think I'll have quite this level of experience and I'll be disappointed.
But, it's funny because this happened, I don't know, over 25 years ago. This actually happened. And I don't know what that had to do with the movie, but I do remember it.
You do remember it. I really hope that whoever the banana wielder was finds this poem eventually, and that's what I'm rooting for.
Yeah.
So thank you for it. It was really, the descriptions are really excellent too. I mean, I could really see all of it despite it being something I never thought I would see. So thank you.
So glad to share that moment with the larger audience.
Thanks so much, Angie.
Thanks so much, Angie. Yeah, there was Angie Blake Moore with Banana Trick. Yeah, well, we got to go to a Rocky. I've been before.
I've never been.
You got to like study all the things because there's so many things the audience
I know,
does.
but that's what I want. It's like because
really
we went to the Hollywood Bowl for the Sound of Music sing along, and that was I would do that every year if we were still.
It
going
needs to be in like one of those really dirty old theaters, though.
Oh, I understand. Like we were out in Boston.
Exactly.
It's like a time warp in and of itself. Yeah. Okay.
Anyway, let's go next to Matt Joseph.
Hi guys, can you hear me?
Hey,
yep.
Matt.
Hey, Matt. Great to see you.
Glad you're able to join us. I know you were trying to get back, and that's great.
Totally.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. So, I'll confess two things. One, this poem is serving dual purpose. So I actually this was also my ekphrastic submission. And so I don't know if that's okay or not, but I was so inspired that the picture for this month just made me burst out laughing. And this poem is almost exclusively in the past tense, and I until the very end. So the present tense does sneak in. I'll just say that. So
Matt, too, before you begin, I'm just going to say also in confessionary type mode, my dad is the artist, the ekphrastic artist this month because he's a photographer. So my dad took this portrait when I was a baby in Miami. So yeah.
Well, it cast me back in ways that are uncomfortable. So all right. All right. I'll just jump in. So bench warmer. If I'm honest, which if I'm being 100% honest, I can honestly say I sometimes am not. Wasn't every goddamn day of high school just this? Someone getting Frenched, getting something I was not, getting something I wanted to believe, I needed to have, biceps, nookie, mad skills, all that. Righteous, cool, badassery, but mostly belonging to something or someone as hard as that nameless Aussie shepherd belonged to the wide grass field and the moss green house I would run by in the summer when sunlight fell out of the sky like a hammer and it would charge at me, a rabid bullet, all fur and fury, then stop with a puzzled look when I raised my hand, pretending to have a rock, pretending to be brave, making it turn and run back towards the house it belonged to, or maybe it was the home and its people that belonged to the dog. Either way, it was exactly the way I wanted so badly to belong, to protect and be protected, the way I still want, the way I still pretend.
Yeah. Well, very cool poem. Yeah, thanks so much for sharing that, Matt. And Matt, definitely the current Ekphrastic Challenge Artist Choice, too, for the month.
Super cool, yeah.
Yeah, and the second time Matt's been chosen by the artist.
Yeah.
Which is no small
a year ago to the day. It was literally a year to the day.
Oh, wow.
From last year. So, anyways, yeah.
You're going to have to get a badge that's like Artist Choice favorite.
Yeah, sure. All right. Thanks, you guys.
Thanks so much,
very
Matt.
cool.
Good
Thanks
to see
always,
you.
Matt.
Bye.
Yeah, there's Matt Joseph with Benchwarmer. Once again, that great photo that Katie's dad Steve made is the poem, and you have an hour and 45 minutes to write a poem about it if you haven't yet, and submit it to.
Am I eligible? No,
you are not eligible. You are never eligible, but you're doubly uneligible this time.
Well, now you're just rubbing it in.
Anyway,
it's fun though. Definitely fun to have his photography out there. And I mean, of course, my dad's photography influenced me a lot, and it's part of why I wanted to, get to do the still life in the print edition of Rattle that we're working on, and soon is going to be released with the next issue with Rena Espaillat, and that's been so much fun to work at. So I'm obsessed with black and white photography, and I definitely owe that to my dad's roots, who is an amazing photographer.
Yeah, definitely he is.
Yeah.
Couldn't agree more. Yeah. And it's gonna be fun seeing what he chooses.
I know. I'm sure he's gonna have a lot to say about it because he's my dad. Well, yeah.
Anyway, all right. So let's go next. Last but not least, to Chelsea McGlynn.
Hello.
Hey,
Hi.
Chelsea. Great to see you. Thanks for waiting.
Good to see you. Thank you. I have a very short poem. It's a demi-sonnet, which means it's 7 lines, and the last 2 are supposed to rhyme, but I always like to put lots of internal rhymes in the demi-sonnet as well. I feel like it needs to have lots of sound to it. And I hope it's short, but I'm not sure I'm going to be able to get through it. So if I wave you guys on, feel free to finish it off for me.
We're here for you. Yeah. Thank you for being up, for sharing it.
Lines written from the ICU. I reach for my friend's hand. Don't, her husband says. The infection. He clarifies it's for your own protection, not for hers. I wash my hands, put on gloves, and watch her hazel eyes roll over my face, blind. I wonder what it's like to die, to reach the end without ever feeling the touch of human skin again.
Oh, that is heartbreaking. Yeah.
Yeah, Chelsea, it's really beautiful, and it is. The music allows us to better connect with the experience and the difficulties of it. And I think sometimes people can be like, this is a serious poem. I'm not going to have rhymes or anything, but it helps us connect. It's the magic spell that gets us into it, that helps us experience this moment. So thank you for writing it and being up for sharing it tonight.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Chelsea. It was Chelsea McGlynn with Lines Written from the ICU. And that's going to wrap up the prompt lines for tonight. And let's go to a haiku. Do you remember? I mean, I don't remember the haiku either, but I had one in Monday. What'd you have?
We'll
Katie?
find out together.
We're about to find out. Okay, here's Katie's.
Oh, okay.
Oop, hang on one second. Let me fix all this. Okay, that's better.
Okay.
Okay.
Box of buttons. All the dangling threads.
I love that image and the cut. Where were you inspired by that? Was it
well, I have to thank social media for this. To Alan Shapiro's chagrin, I think I just saw somebody posted a beautiful image of buttons, and I started to think of all the places buttons have, and like my mom's mom, my grandmother was a wonderful seamstress, so she had all these boxes, and even though I don't have any of them, I could just picture it, and then the kind of the sadness of like the things that we don't have time to mend is sort of what I'm trying to allude to. Yeah.
Oh, that's a very cool haiku. I like that.
Thank you.
All right.
You're probably taken aback to see a 3-line haiku from me these days.
I've
been writing so many esoteric haiku.
Traditional English language haiku.
If we're calling that traditional, that'll confuse some people. All right.
Okay.
What do you have?
I don't know. Let's see. Oh, yeah. Oh, mend. You just said mend. I got mend in here, too.
Oh,
Ready?
That's funny.
Yeah. So here we go. Rotten fence. Mended with a few new line edits. So that is our one of the many things that have sort of gone wrong this week, actually.
It's been a really good week for how many things have gone wrong.
It's like the mood's great, but there have been a lot of little problems.
Like a tree collapsing.
One of them, the tree fell over and knocked our fence down.
And not in our yard, so we can't even feel like it was our issue.
Yeah, but it knocked our fence through.
Yeah,
the hole in that, knocked
neighbor.
out the neighbor's internet, which somehow didn't relate to ours. I think it might have been, I don't know. But anyway.
Anyway.
But yeah, and so if you go back there, which you haven't, I don't think, and I don't recommend it.
No, because you told me there were so many bugs, so I did not go back.
I'm itching my shin right now.
I know, it's kind of gross.
But you'll see this haiku in action if you do go back.
It was
there.
worth it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, anyway, that is going to wrap up the show for tonight. Let's see what we have for next week, sort of.
A few days from now.
Yeah. Get
Okay.
quick. Okay.
Write a poem. There's a typo in it, so I'm thrown because I don't.
Okay.
Write a poem which utilizes a quote as the title and indicate who said it within the body of the poem.
Okay.
Yeah.
So write a poem which utilizes a quote as the title and indicate who said it within the body of the poem.
You know why I think I put the in there by accident? It's
Why is
because
that?
I was thinking of Denise DeHamel and In Which.
In Which. Yeah.
I was reading her for. Anyway.
So I do have a question about this.
Okay.
So normally if you did a quote, you would or often, I shouldn't say normally, you would do like a little hyphen, like an epigraph.
Yeah.
Is that not allowed because it has to be in the body of the poem?
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying it should be the title.
Yeah. No,
yeah,
no.
And then
no, the title.
differentiating.
But then usually you'd say like,
No, I'm trying to not do that.
Trying not to do that. Okay.
Also, too, I will say that given the fact that I came up with this prompt already, this is the only time this has ever happened where I've already actually written mine.
Wow.
And I will say, too, that if it's blatantly obvious who said it, that counts as kind of identifying it.
Okay.
That's how I feel, at least.
Okay.
So, I mean, I did Shakespeare. Feel like we know that dude. Or we should know him better. but
Willie
still,
Shakes,
yeah. Willie's my bro, but
Okay.
yeah. But I think it's like what I want people to think about is like, well, how does this differ than like just having an epigraph and a quote? Like, how come is this a new thing we're not really doing as much in poetry? I think it's interesting because I happened to write a different poem like that, and that made me think about it, and then I wrote one after having decided to.
Very cool. Well, it should be fun prompt. That's the prompt for next week, and the guest for next week is going to be
Jeff Stumpo,
our very own Jeff Stumpo.
Yay!
And oh no, I wrote the wrong date on here too. Oh
gosh.
So
it's Sunday.
Yeah, it's Sunday. And I will fix this by the time we end the show. But it is Sunday, May 3rd, not Monday, May 3rd.
Oh my
and because on Monday, our daughter has a choir concert. She's doing a solo. We don't want to miss it. So we moved the show, and Jeff graciously volunteered to move back a day to Sunday. He's got a new book. These Are the Waterfalls in My Head, all poems about dreams. And I got to say, it's one of the most gorgeous books I've ever seen. Have you seen the physical copy yet? Like inside? Yeah.
Yeah, it's really pretty.
It's a really cool
It's
concept.
neat.
He
Yeah.
designed this cover himself, too.
Oh, I didn't know
and
that.
then they added the details that are in the book later, which is really cool. Anyway, very cool book from Jeff Stumpo, who's a very fascinating person. I've always sort of wanted to know more about Jeff, so I'm really looking forward to getting to know him better. Of course, regular listeners and viewers recognize him as being a frequent contributor on the prompt lines. He's actually got
of the month,
prompt poet of the month. He's been Poets Respond poet, and he has 2 poems in separate sections of the current issue.
Yeah, so
which might have never happened before.
So in the tribute section for Invented Forms, and then in the open poetry section, this happened. As a scheduling thing, but you don't think it's? I was asking Tim, has this ever happened before?
Yeah, as far as I know, it's
pretty cool accolade.
It definitely is.
Yeah,
and So let's see. So anyway, that's going to be your guess. I'm trying to get there quick, but we've gone through
What are you trying to do?
I'm trying to fix this image before we go.
I think that's too much.
No, it's not. It's not. Because it ends up being like the end image in a lot of things. It sits there and sort of hangs, and I want to make sure the right date.
All right. Well,
is
we can
on
talk
there.
more about Jeff Stumpo and how cool he is.
He is, and the slam poetry that Jeff's done over the years. Just so much, and he's such a fascinating.
Well, he is so flexible with the way he approaches prompts too. It's really interesting. It's always fun to get to read his stuff because you never know where it's going to go. And of course, he's working on that Choose Your Own Adventure poetry book, which is exciting also.
One of the things I learned in his bio is that he publishes. He wrote a new book every year, for the last few years too.
Cool.
Yeah. So anyway, that's Jeff Stumpo. He's the guest, and we're about to get this thing fixed. Everything's taking longer than it should, but there's weirdly every little tiny thing. Here we go. There we go, though.
Yay! Magically the right
Yeah,
date.
magically the right date.
As
Oh my
if
gosh.
no time passed.
No time has elapsed. It is not later than normal. Anyway, thanks everybody for watching the show. It's been great. It's only going to be, how many days? 3 days? 2 days?
I don't know.
Whatever it is. 3 days until Sunday.
And guess what? You have a show tomorrow because you're doing Critique of the Week.
We have the Critique of the Week tomorrow with
We're
the regular time.
attempt a poetry space. Probably not.
Well, we'll see.
I don't know.
So here's the schedule. We got to lay it out. Rattlecast is still going despite being 10:25 p.m. in the East Coast. Then tomorrow morning or tomorrow afternoon, 4 p.m., Critique of the Week. Maybe a poetry space coming out earlier than that. And then Sunday at the regular time, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, the show we've all been waiting for, Jeff Stumple, Rattlecast 341, with that cool prompt that we just talked about. Write all that down. You're going to need notes, but we're doing it all. Looking forward to it. Hope you have a great couple days until we see you again on Sunday. Good night.
Good night.